Hello guys, it is I, Frieza700. We are back with some Kingdom Under Fire lore. What the fuck is Vellond? So Vellond is a Dark Elf nation that is ruled with a constitutional monarchy. That is very cool. So what we do know about the government is that it has a senate, and it also has a king and a prince. So that by definition is a constitutional monarchy. Now there are a few rules obviously that we've seen in this government, but we've also seen that this government deploys inspectors, also known as inquisitors. Now, in the games they don't call them inquisitors, but they function exactly the same as that. The humans have the inquisitors, so the Dark Legion comparison is just inspectors. Now, the kingdom is only one in all of the kingdoms in Berja that actually consist of every race. But the other races in Vellond do not share the same rights and liberties. So here we go, let's start with the rights and liberties in this government. So in Vellond, the higher-ups who run the politics and are also the rulers and the inspectors are the vampires and the half-vampires. Now, it used to be 50 years ago that these vampires were separated into 4 different clans who combined their rulership, but that's been changed into now a more united, singular entity, which would be the king, Lord Voldemort. Now, all vampires are eligible to rule only if the king is dead along with his heir. But that is also decided by the Senate, so it's not just that the king is dead and now his heir is boom, we're going to select the most popular vampire. No, it's more of a congressional selection by the Senate. Now, never, ever in history has Vellond been ruled by the Dark Elves, despite the fact that Vellond is mostly a majority Dark Elf nation. Now that brings us to our second topic. The second race, and the most numerous, is the Dark Elves. They form the vast bulk of Vellond. They are the troops, the middle class, and depending on the Dark Elf, they are academically privileged. They are never ruling their nation. As King Voldemort has stated, the Dark Elves fight amongst themselves a little bit too much. This, of course, is in their nature. It's their nature to be super feisty and always bickering with each other. Which, of course, speaking of which, majority of the Dark Elves are actually women, and those women make up both the military and also the brunt of the civilian life. Now, the male Dark Elves, they have been seen in the military, but it's rare as they're more commonly the lower class, and they're dedicated to hard labor rather than fighting. The men are also typically calmer, which makes it hard for them to fight on the sheer level that the women are fighting at, because the women have a fighting spirit that is almost akin to like a Viking with their roaring and their constant yelling and screaming, whereas the men are very quiet, very docile. They'll strike with elegance and speed, but that's not enough for them to make up the whole army. Also, the men are very singular in use, whereas women can be deployed as secret spies, reporting on their commanders and their local troops to the local inquisitor. That's something that men can't do. Us men, we're not so secretive and sneaky like women are typically. So that's where the women in the Dark Elf nation lie in. So now let's get to the other races. What about the orcs, the ogres, the humans, the elves, and the dwarves? Well, they're all low class, but I shouldn't really say low class, because they don't have any rights. They don't get to own property, they don't get to own shit. They're strictly slaves. Now, they are all slaves, but they are devoted into 2 roles, either to be feasted on by the vampires for their banquets, or to be put to work. Now, this nation doesn't believe in genocide, so you're not going to see them work to death like you would see in Warhammer, where they literally just work you till you collapse from exhaustion. No. They do have some human rights regarding to how you treat slaves. Now, despite the fact that the elves feel superior to all the races of Berja, they do tolerate the vampire overlords, and they do feel justified in letting the weaklings be their slaves. Now, the reason for this is that they can easily just justify in their head that the vampire overlords are just simply being allowed to rule them, whereas the weaklings, well, they don't believe in genociding them, but they aren't exactly good enough to be given rights, so fuck it, just make them work hard. That's essentially their line of logic. Now, the Vellond military is mostly, as you guessed it, Dark Elves, but their military is actually really strong. The only issue is that they're technologically lacking. So they don't have the sophistication that the orcs or the humans have where they're able to build traps, but they're sophisticated enough to build walls, set up cities, and, well, that's pretty much it. They do devote themselves, though, to magic and, of course, having a shit ton of numbers. This is something that humanity does not have that much of. Humanity has magic, but never is their magic casters as good as the Dark Elves. This, of course, brings me to the unit comparison. So let's compare their units individually. A Dark Elf archer has shorter range than their human counterparts, and their infantrymen lack strength and endurance like a human, but they make up for this by imbuing magic to their swords and arrows. This is very unique. This means that if the leader of their unit is a fire caster, then she can imbue all their arrows with fire damage. If it's a earth magic, then she imbues it all with poison magic. This is really cool shit. Now, to also make this even worse for the humans, the Dark Elves are also super fast. They are really speedy, and due to the fact that they're really feisty and ill-tempered, they tend to fight with tooth and nail. They do not have an issue getting dirty. They will bitch about it though later in the camp once they get back. And it's very common when you eavesdrop on them that they complain about how muddy their boots are and shit like that. But, hey, they are very willing, if the time is needed, to get really down and dirty and bite their opponent. They will do it. Now, this is of course more than enough to knock men down, but also the last strength that they really have is that their natural beauty as all women gives the foolish human and orc a certain moment of pause before finishing the strike on these savage warriors. This of course gives the Dark Elves a very brief moment for them to quickly catch their balance and catch their enemy off guard. This is something that the humans have to constantly be drilled on, is to not give in to mercy. Don't give in just because of how natural it is to give in when you see a woman fall down. No, these are elite killers. Now, speaking about elite, let's talk about their elite branch in the military. The elite branch of Dark Elves is also known as the Janitary. These are basically the best the elves have to offer. Now, this could be the best archer, boom, you're a Janitary. The best swordsman, boom, you're a Janitary. The best horseman, boom, you're a Janitary. It's not like the Janissaries in the Ottoman Empire where they were all strictly just agents and swordsmen. No. The Janitary are more diverse. But these are the best that the Dark Elves have to offer. If you've earned yourself a significant number of battles where you've definitely distinguished yourself, you're going to be transferred into this unit. Now, speaking about their military, they also use extensive use of orc slaves, as Hexter, which is a nation of orcs, is united, and they do ally themselves with Vellond, but the orcs aren't welcomed. In fact, they're far from welcomed. The orcs are seen as tribals because they live in tents, whereas the Dark Elves are more, I would say, extravagant because they set up more Egyptian-type structures and cities. So, of course, they look down on the orcs, and they always hate the fact that the orcs are mostly men, and as I stated, they already hate their own men, seeing them as inferior. So now with men of another species, especially ones who are hogs, pigs, always peeping in their quarters, they really fucking hate orcs. So that's why they always enslave them, despite working with them. Now, the biggest military threat to Vellond, surprisingly, isn't the human, or orc, or elf, or slave, or dwarf. No, the biggest threat is actually the Cadies. And the Cadies is a pro-Dark Elf revolutionary faction, or, as we would know it, terrorists, who support what would be a nation of Vellond ruled only by Dark Elves, no vampires. Now, this is the reason why the Inspectors exist. This is the reason why the Inspectors are dispatched by King Voldemort, and this is the reason why the Dark Elves cannot be really trusted. Despite the fact that they make up the bulk of Vellond, they have to be regulated and given a type of monarchy where it's a little stricter than what they would like. Now, the Dark Elves, of course, love this idea. They love the idea of ruling their own kingdom, but a few of them are actually loyal to the vampires, and they even stated themselves, like Commander Rumen and a few other commanders. They always state that before Vellond existed, and even during the early years of Vellond's existence, the Dark Elves were always fighting with each other. They were always in different nations warring against each other. They could never unify. And of course, at the end of Kingdom Under Fire Crusaders, that's exactly what happens. You see it where Vellond gets overthrown by the Cadies, and immediately they start fighting with each other because they just can't agree with each other, and they just don't get along. They're very feisty and very full of that eagerness to fight. So to combat this, Lord Voldemort not only dispatches inspectors, but he also focuses on invading the humans, as this gives the Dark Elves an outlet. This draws them so much into the war that they don't have time to think about the Cadies and to join against the vampires because they're so tired from the war, but also their hatred for the humans outweighs their hatred for the vampires. Because again, the vampires at least let them vent out their frustration, whereas humans, no, they would not. Humans are very peaceful, docile, full of men. That's shit that Vellond does not like. So besides that, this has been What the Fuck is Vellond? I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you guys learned some. And besides that, see you guys next time. Click the like, comment, and subscribe button. I would love to hear your opinions. And I would love it if you just smash that fucking subscribe button. Hit the bell icon too, so that way you can actually receive my notifications. I noticed that's a thing for some of you guys, is that you guys subscribe, but sometimes you don't get notified. That might be the reason why. Besides that, see you guys next time.